Okay guys, hey, and welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a really special review for you guys from the brand BENLYDESIGN. They're a digital watchmaker with a focus on retro futuristic designs. And in terms of the type of watch, this is a digital watch. Some key characteristics and design when you're looking for something within the space. Of course, you're going to want something that is non-analog with a digital readout in terms of the timing information. This is their Moon Rover, and yes, this is an unfortunate byproduct of having such a cool design and a really sharp LED layout is that it's pretty much going to be intermediate. It pops up when you look at it. It actually has something where you activate it and you turn your wrist. We'll test that later on in the video, and essentially it will pop up so that you can read it. But it's essentially their Moon Rover S3000 SW, being, I believe, silver, and then W being white in terms of that display readout. It's a Cyberpunk-inspired wristwatch with a really well-integrated solar panel and an ultra-sharp OLED display. Again, that OLED display is only going to come on, unfortunately, it doesn't just stay on because that would be a bit more of a battery draw. So, again, bear with me here. I know normally I have the sweeping tick of a mechanical movement on there, or a quartz movement, and in this case, there's not too much visual interest during this intro. The cool, interesting thing is these only go for $119 direct, and I think they look really cool, especially with this current popularity of the Cybertruck, as well as when you think about things like the DeLorean from Back to the Future. There's this retro futuristic design, and I think it's really cool right now, and you're starting to see more and more brands revisit this space. So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay guys, so let's take a look at this. Really great profile. Look at that. Well, just, I enjoy a good angle shot of this really beautiful dial. That is very see the LT, essentially I set it to where as it goes out, when you move it and angle it, it should keep displaying. So that will help as I kind of describe this to you, because it basically is going to believe that I'm looking at the time, depending. As you see, it just came back on without me pressing the button. Actually, let me give it a quick little wipe here, because yeah, you do have, the interesting thing is not just a screen but also a really cool solar panel that, from my understanding, is actually for an additional power boost. It doesn't recharge the battery, but it basically can directly charge or provide direct power to the screen. So that's a little different. So you can replace the battery on this. It's not something where there's an internal capacitor that is not replaceable, at least by a local shop. This is going to be one where you can yourself personally replace the battery, and then the solar panel will just be good to go to just add again that little auxiliary boost. But man, this thing's cool. Definitely you're getting Cybertruck vibes here, guys. This is very different than what you would see on the channel. Definitely falls closer within that, I'd say, the space of a wildcard watch, to coin a TGV phrase, versus something like your daily wear. Like, I don't expect, even if you like, Braun, or you're a big fan of, the Apple Watch or something like that, I still foresee this being as more of kind of a funky special watch that you wear on, different occasions, not necessarily every day, unless your style is just that quirky and, this is totally your vibe. And if that's the case, that's awesome for you. For me, this is definitely something that's fun to kind of bust out. I mean, my kids love the look of this thing, so it might find its way to their wrist. Big shout out to BENLYDESIGN for sending this piece in, for me to check out, and it is very cool. So in terms of the dimensions, very interesting, right? Because it tapers in so many directions, right? So at its widest point, essentially, it's 39.8 millimeters, and then at its widest height, it's going to be 16.4 6.8 millimeters in height, and again, peak 45 millimeters lug to lug, and you know, stainless steel. And this does have also 30 meters of water resistance, which is going to be quite useful. You know, although I wouldn't be dunking this or anything like that, it does have mineral glass. It does use the CR2032 in terms of its power supply, and then it also has, of course, that auxiliary solar power from this very cool little integrated panel, which again, it just gives me kind of Cybertruck vibes. Look at that silhouette. It's cool. And no, I don't think the Cybertruck is the greatest vehicle ever made, but what it does do is it does an amazing job of standing out, making you look at it, and I think that's what they do with this particular timepiece as well. Again, that backlight is a white color in terms of the display. It doesn't have like a backlight where you can light it up like some level of Indiglo where the whole screen lights up. It's basically that negative display with that beautiful, nice, clean, crisp white output, which looks great. Now, getting into the bracelet, 22 millimeter lug, stainless steel bracelet. It's a bandolier style that is actually folded link, so a little old school on the construction here. Check that out. It does have quick release spring bars, but as you guys can see, the folded links, these are not solid. So again, it kind of ties more into that retro design as well. Also, you'll notice a curved case back, so that is going to add additional comfort on the wrist. So if you see something kind of flat and jagged, you might not think comfort, but I will say that they do a very good job in terms of contouring that and thinking about those points where your skin's going to come into contact. If you do have hairier arms than me, which pretty much anybody will have, you might be concerned with some of these little, you know, open spaces from the folding. You know, if your hair does get pinched, again, I can't say if it'll pinch your hair, but it doesn't pinch mine because I don't really have arm hair. So very fortunate from that perspective. Now, that 22 millimeter lug does make it quite versatile in terms of putting it on any other straps. But this bandolier style bracelet, I think, looks really cool and definitely suits the theme. It's about 21.5 millimeters at that first link, and then it tapers down to about 19.5 millimeters at this clasp. So it does have a mild taper. You can see just the first couple of links are stepped down, and then it's pretty much the same length all the way around. And here you're not going to be adjusting these, because what you'll do instead of trying to pull these off is you're just going to slide them through, and this actually is going to tuck underneath, so that essentially you're going to have it be quite tidy at the end of the day, as it, the thing is trying to get it lined up perfectly to where it kind of hits that little gap. So let's see if I can, there we go. So you'll get that. It's going to be able to sit, you guys can see, very well articulated. It does have some body to it, so it's not going to be able to sit all the way flat on a desk or something like that. You're going to get something that looks like this, which I think is actually aesthetically quite pleasing. But with that said, let's actually demo getting it on the wrist, because for those of you who might not know how to, you might want to see that. So we'll go ahead and get it through. We're going to feed this chain through. We'll see how hard or easy we can make this for me. And essentially pinch it down. Oh, no, I want to get it a little bit further down so that that little pincher has better alignment. Oh, no. Maybe I should have done this off camera. Nope. Okay, hey, there you go. So very cool. Okay, so one little thing is that's pretty loose. So what I would probably want to do is get it a little further down the wrist and then actually tighten it up, because further down you're gonna have a little bit more room because it's a little bit smaller. As you can see, your wrist tapers. It's gonna be smaller closest to the hand, and then you're gonna want to do this. Find a little sweet spot. There we go, and then let that come back up. There you go. That's the fit that I want. Check it out. Very, very cool. And as you guys can see, that screen is quite responsive in terms of there we go. So it's this motion that kind of gets that to activate. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera, there's going to be a good bit of perspective distortion, and it's going to appear much larger than it actually is. But let's do this motion again. Boom. Quite okay. That's pretty repeatable. All right, then what we'll do is I'll just keep my wrist nice and low and then tighten up the frame here so you guys can still get a detailed view, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio. Boom. Check that out. So it actually just sits decently centered on the wrist. Guys, of course, I do have a larger than average 7.5-inch wrist, but it is quite tall and round. It's not super flat and wide and accommodating. So I do, of course, have to take in consideration overall proportions as well as ultimate diameters on these, on these sizes overall. And I think this does a good job. And again, it's the down and then coming up. There we go. So if you had your hand by your side, you pull it up, hand by, boom. There you go. Very cool. I do wish it just ran. I was hoping with the addition of that solar panel that they would have the capacity to just keep it running constantly. But I totally understand that, of course, these are going to be more of a power draw. And ultimately, nobody likes changing batteries. So being able to conserve some of that power as you go does make sense. But of course, yeah, it would be cool if it was just running all the time. So that's a bit of a drawback from me anyway. But with that said, let's actually get it off the wrist, set up for some low light transition and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. All right, so in the dark, you're not going to see much, but let me hit this. Will my camera be able to focus in on those lights without a little help? Probably not. There we go. But let's do this, because I always like to work in a bit of low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And you guys can see that, of course, with this all brushed, satinized, and quite angular stainless steel case, it's going to give you a lot of great light play, even without the time being, displayed at all times. But my goodness, man, I wish it was. That would make this a much more entertaining piece for me. I just think having that little bit of lively motion to look at would just add so much to the experience. But again, there's really no point in kind of using battery for when you're not actually looking at the screen. I do wish they had, maybe an option to just have it to where it's running for a certain amount of time, and you could set that, whether it be have it run for a minute, or whatever before it kind of automatically shuts off. I think that would be great. You guys can see the solar panel there. Looks really, really cool. The bandolier style bracelet, really nicely done. Very uniform brushing. Of course, this isn't going to be anything luxurious or anything like that. It definitely gives you those kind of more vintage Casio vibes in terms of the level of fit and finish. This isn't some kind of hot horology holy trinity piece by any means, but it's really not meant to. It's really something different. And I mean, even for, I would say, great for people who aren't necessarily super into wristwatches. So I think this does have a lot of crossover fun. Obviously, if you have a big collection, this could be a really fun wildcard for you. But if you don't have a really big collection, maybe you're just not into watches, I can easily see something like this getting somebody into watches just because of that engagement that you're going to have with it. You have it on your wrist, you're going to want to wear it, you're going to want to look at it, you're going to want to try it out with different straps and etc. And then maybe you'll lead yourself into trying out other timepieces. So closing thoughts, guys, on the wrist, that angular shape does help mitigate peak height. And the clasp can be a bit fidgety, as you guys noticed, to put on, which can be a challenge and maybe won't make this the greatest everyday pairing. They do have some straps that are also available. I think they actually come with that are kind of more within the lines of like an Apple watch strap, where there's some magnetized ends that can make it a little bit easier to secure, which is cool if you're gonna maybe wear this as more of a grab and go. But I think the all steel setup definitely adds to the aesthetic and kind of makes it worthy and worth at a little extra time on your wrist, spending that little extra time maybe fidgeting with the clasp. In terms of model variants, it's also available in gunmetal or black coating or plain steel as seen, right? So there's going to be gunmetal and the black coat and then the plain. So the S within the nomenclature after the 3000, the S3000, the S is for steel, I believe, and then the W is for the white because you get your choice of white or red display. The red display is very cool. I thought the white was just a little bit more crisp, and I'd say a little bit more contemporary versus the red definitely gives it more of a serious kind of retro look. In terms of comparable models, more and more brands are revisiting this aesthetic, especially with the current popularity of, you know, items like the Cybertruck. So you are starting to see more mainstream brands just kind of dive into this really cool retro vintage space, where that kind of futuristic, like this is what we thought the future was going to look like, you know, in the past. That was people's vision of the future, and it's just funny to see how much things kind of go in a completely different direction. So this can be a bit nostalgic in terms of its styling, and yeah, I enjoy that. So bottom line, while this is not my cup of tea, it is a lot of fun and absolutely qualifies as a wild card watch while still being versatile enough for daily wear. Yeah, so I mean, I could see this being somebody's signature watch. You know, maybe they're not big into watches, or they have been, or whatever. They're transitioning off of smartwatches. I could definitely see this as being, you know, that type of piece, a statement piece for them. But I could also see it as being more of just kind of a fun weekend watch meet type of piece, you know, when you're just wanting to change things up a bit for somebody who's a more seasoned collector like myself. But let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you liked the video, please do it like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.